Conjure Barrage is a level 3 conjuration spell, and it's unique to rangers. Only rangers can get the spell. The magical secrets for bards does not include this spell, so the only way you can learn this is to get a ranger to level 9. So what does it do? The description says channel your weapon's essence into a destructive, widespread volley. There is a dexterity saving throw involved, where the spell save DC is based off wisdom since it comes from a ranger. It is a 9-meter cone, I'll show you later. In fact, I'm going to skip this damage because actually it's not quite right, which is one issue I have with this spell. I've turned Karlach into a level 12 hunter ranger here, which is why we see volley and whirlwind attack. I'll come to those later. So here's Conjure Barrage. When you click on it, you get 2 different options, one for your melee weapon and one for your ranged weapon. One point to note is that you need to have a weapon equipped. If I unequip her melee weapon, let's say, the option for melee now becomes grayed out and it says no melee weapon equipped. It has to be the ranged weapon attack that I would use. It's also worth noting that dual wielding doesn't affect the damage that you see here. So you can see here's the cone, here's the area that's going to be hit, and it will hit your allies. One more downside to this spell. Also, as a side note, did you know that pure rangers get a 4th level 3 spell slot? Pretty sure it's a bug, not supposed to happen, but it's not been taken out of the game for over 2 years now, so I assume Larian is okay with that. My next issue with the spell, I want to like this spell actually, I really do. I think it's kind of cool. But my next issue is looking at the damage here from the tooltip. This 2d8 is added as part of the spell. The spell adds a bit of extra damage, which is cool, which is nice. The 2d6 comes from the fact she's wielding a greatsword. It's plus 29 to damage. It includes the fact she's taken an elixir of Cloud Giant Strength and wielding Baldur's greatsword, so it doesn't add just 1 +8 from her strength, it adds a second +8. It's also including the fact that she has a +3 weapon. The weapon enchantment is +3, and she's got Great Weapon Master going. Let's try this out. So let's use melee. The +1d6, sorry, is from her gloves. The +1d4 is because I've enchanted Baldur's Giant Slayer, so let's just see this. However, when we come down to the damage, I mean, it's kind of respectable damage, 37. I wonder if any of you can notice that there's something missing. There's no Great Weapon Master damage added, even though it was turned on. It's kind of the source of one other issue I've got with this spell, is it is not a weapon attack. It's not pretending to be either, right? The spell doesn't say make a weapon attack. You are channeling your weapon's essence, and enemies get to make a dexterity saving throw, nothing to do with the armor class. What this also means is it's not possible to get a critical hit. There's no way to make all of the damage rolls doubled. So there's no way to make that 2d8 turn into 4d8 or that 1d8 into 2d8. It will always be 2d8 plus your weapon's damage. On top of not being able to crit, it does mean it won't benefit from Hunter's Mark. So if I start with Hunter's Mark here, Selena, Fist Selena, Silena. So when it comes to Karlach's turn, let's just use the melee version. Let's find Selena. It's got the 2d8 from the spell, the 2d6 from the weapon damage itself, the +3 from the +3 enchantment, and 2 lots of +8. There's no sign of Hunter's Mark, and this is because Hunter's Mark requires a weapon attack, and this is not a weapon attack. Other things that don't benefit, I'm not going to show you all of them, just going to list some of them off. Other things that don't benefit are Arcane Synergy, Prepare, which is one of the weapon skills, Wrath, and Smites, Sneak Attacks. None of these things work. And unfortunately, as I will show you very soon, Titan String Bow, even though it says it deals additional damage equal to your strength modifier, this doesn't get added when you use the ranged version. Also, things that don't get applied are poisons and such. So I'm going to apply Drow Poison, the Titan String Bow. Let's just start with this. And we can see here no saves were made against the Drow Poison. And I know that's definitely the case because when enemies pass their saving throws, they get inoculated against it for I've forgotten how many turns, but that is, you know, the poison doesn't work. And here specifically for the Titan String Bow, it's just the 2d8 from the spell plus the 1d8 from the weapon. There's no sign whatsoever of the ability from the Titan String Bow. One nice thing about the spell though is even if enemies do pass their saving throws, such as happened for Gauntlet Edwina here, the damage is halved. And kind of nicely, the only damage that is halved is actually from the weapon itself. This extra fire damage from her gloves didn't get halved, which I think is pretty nice. Let's just show this off again. Uh-oh, gonna get tabbed there. Fist Richter passed the saving throw. This isn't halved, this isn't halved, this down here isn't halved either. And you can have some brownie points if you can calculate how I've done. I'd say a fair bit of damage with the psychic damage. After testing some of the weapons, it really seems like any extra effects from your weapons, such as heavy hitter here from Giant Breaker or Herald, which can inflict Bane, they don't seem to get added. It's really only things that add extra damage to your weapons that seem to apply to Conjure Barrage. One other thing I did test, I don't think it's worth showing you right now, is if you are enfeebled from the level 2 spell, Ray of Enfeeblement, actually your weapon damage is also halved, which kind of sucks, but that so rarely gets cast on you, I don't think it's worth worrying about. And so since it's not a weapon attack, the Helmet of Arcane Acuity doesn't work because it requires you to make a weapon attack. I've already shown you Baldur and Great Sword Giant Slayer works pretty well. Another hat that can work, sure I've got it here, right, one hat that can work is the Pyro Quickness hat. If you're dealing fire damage on your attack, which I will be from the Helldusk gloves. Now, one combination that works so well, and this isn't really anything to do with Conjure Barrage really, but you can see here I've got Shadow Blade, and this is because I made a multi-class between level 9 Ranger and level 3 Sorcerer. Shadowheart is has the Resonance Stone in her bag, so everyone here is steeped in bliss. And I do want to point out that using a level 4 spell slot, I can't use a level 4 spell slot for Conjure Barrage. And if I click on Conjure Barrage, there's no option to upcast it. I don't really care if upcasting doesn't cause any extra damage or anything. What I care about is if I've got a level 4 spell slot, I damn well want to use it for any spell up to and including level 4. Anyway, so if I use my melee version of the spell, and so with a single spell, you can kill these four fists. Now, the fists aren't like the strongest enemies around, but I'm dealing a fair bit of damage, I would say. Now, one thing I do want to point out is this build currently has Savage Attacker, which rerolls some dice. It rerolls the dice from Shadowblade itself. So this here are the dice that were rolled from the 3d8, but the 2d8 from the spell are not, which I wouldn't really expect, because Savage Attacker does talk about melee attacks. Unfortunately, it doesn't seem to reroll all the additional modifiers to damage, like the lightning here, which again comes from Gale, who's used the Drake Throat Glaive. It doesn't seem to reroll the fire damage from her gloves. So this setup works even better if you actually remember to concentrate on a spell when you've got the strange Conjurate Ring attached. So let's cast, it doesn't really matter, Hunter's Mark, it's not going to help. Let's go for it. I forgot to equip this, which means somebody else is going to have to help her out. I also want to point out that Combat Inspiration from Valabards doesn't help because it isn't damage from a weapon attack. Crusader's Mantle, however, does. It does require a whole action. It doesn't count as a weapon attack, so you don't get to do 2 of them in one turn. And there we are. I've got my extra bonus action. I've set myself on fire. How's it gone there? I'm burning. And it can be quickened. I mean, why wouldn't it be able to be quickened, to be honest? Unfortunately, the Band of Mystic Scoundrel doesn't work either because it's not a weapon. It really all comes down to the fact it's not a weapon attack. There are lots of things that you might want to work, just don't. If you really want to use this spell, I mean, the Shadow Blade really works out well. And it's a lovely way to actually have area of effect damage on a ranger. And since we're Gloomstalker, pew, and we miss, well done. And so we come to the part of the video asking, why would you take Conjure Barrage on a ranger, specifically a hunter ranger, when we have at level 11 Volley and or Whirlwind Attack? So Volley, first of all, doesn't affect your allies. You shoot as many times as you want. Secondly, as I'll show you in a second, we can cast it twice in one we can use it twice in one turn. There's one attack. And then with the same action, we can do a second attack. Secondly, we get sharpshooter damage if we want it. Thirdly, although I haven't got the best bow to show you, I do get the extra strength modifier of damage from the Titan String Bow. If, I wasn't thinking ahead of time, but if I'd had any sort of poison on my weapon, it would have worked. So we can see that it does work. Let's turn that off for a second. There we are. I mean, yeah, they pass their saving throws, but the point is it does work for them. Another thing we can use to do damage to lots of enemies at once is the Arrow of Many Targets. One of the downsides of the Arrow of Many Targets is that it kind of only, in inverted commas, only attacks 4 people in total, so the person you target plus 3 more. I deal an additional half damage to 3 other targets. Well, I'm dealing a little bit of damage. Let's just get this Crusader's Mantle going again. You'll notice I've now got 8 turns of arcane acuity because I've got the hat, and the arrow does an attack roll. And when it says half damage, it's actually just the weapon damage. The extra modifiers from the weapon bonuses, such as the Titan String Bow, don't get halved. All these other types of damage here don't get halved either, so it's not as bad as it might first seem. Obviously though, the arrow of many targets does require a resource, which has a cost associated, so they can all miss. Brilliant. So yeah, why would you use Conjure Barrage? Well, you know, first of all, just because there are other options doesn't mean you can't have fun with something that you like to use. I've got to say, quite enjoy with this particular setup with Shadow Blade and the Resonance Stone, just being able to like, delete. No, they were actually already hurt a bit. The easiest way out for a ranger to do any sort of AoE damage, I would say, is a hunter, but you don't get that until level 11, whereas Conjure Barrage does come online at level 9, but you don't get the Resonance Stone until the very end of Act 2, so you're probably going to be level 9, maybe 10, usually I'm at 10. Plus it costs a level 3 spell slot. A ranger's never going to have very many of them. You could take elixirs of cultivation, I suppose, arcane cultivation. That could work out. So it's got its positives and negatives. I think maybe I've ignored it for a bit too long. I like the idea of it, but unless you're kind of building to use it, oh dear, Volley's coming our way. Unless you're building to use it, it's not really the best of options. Rangers can deal quite a lot of damage to single targets, and kind of it's often probably best just to stick with that. But of all the ways of dealing damage to multiple enemies, or rangers this is, it's probably got the largest area. Now I know there's spike growth and things that deal damage in an area, but this is like direct damage, deals damage immediately. That's in fact is what I mean. So kind of like that, but you've got to set up quite carefully because you can and will hit your allies as well if you're not paying attention. So let me know if you've ever used Conjure Barrage, have you ever had any success, or do you just think it's just a really poor spell? Do you have any particular builds you'd like to share with the rest of us? So thank you for watching, thank you for making this far, thank you to the members of my channel, and hopefully I'll catch you in the next one.